welcome. I want you to think about something for a second. What's the difference between saying a house and saying a cozy, sun-drenched cottage? That leap, right there, the one from just a plain fact to a real feeling? Well, that's all thanks to the power of adjectives. And today, we are going to dive deep into these amazing words that make our language go from just okay to absolutely spectacular. All right, so here's what we've got on the agenda for today. First, we'll kick things off with the absolute basics. Then, we'll get into where to put your adjectives, check out all the different kinds, and tackle some of the trickier rules about comparison and order. We'll also clear up that classic mix-up between adjectives and adverbs, and to wrap it all up, we'll talk about how you can really master these things in your own speaking and writing. So, let's start at the beginning. What's the real job of an adjective anyway? Well, to put it simply, they're the words that add all the juicy, meaningful details to our language. They take something generic and turn it into something you can actually see, feel, and really get on a much deeper level. Just take a look at this. On one hand, you have the dog ran. Okay, fine, it's a fact. It's grammatically correct. But it's kind of boring, right? It doesn't really paint a picture. But then you add big and fluffy, and bam! Suddenly you can actually see that dog in your head. That's the magic of adjectives. They create this shared image for everyone. So, what's that secret ingredient that brings our language to life? You guessed it. It's the adjective. Seriously, if language was a recipe, adjectives would be all the spices and herbs. There would add the flavor, the depth, the character, everything that makes what we say memorable and engaging. Without them, honestly, talking would be pretty bland. Okay, so what they really do deep down is answer questions about nouns. Questions like, what kind of car is it? Oh, it's a red car. How many cars are there? There are 3 cars. Which car are we talking about? That car. See? They give us all those essential details, the size, the shape, the color, that make our descriptions super precise and way more effective. All right, so we know what they are, but the next big question is, where do they go? You can't just throw them in anywhere. The placement of an adjective actually follows some pretty important rules, and getting them right is key to making your sentences sound clear and natural. Basically, adjectives have 2 main spots where they like to hang out in a sentence. The fancy terms are attributive and predicative. But hey, don't get bogged down by the jargon. What really matters is just understanding these 2 different placements. Once you get the hang of them, you'll have way more flexibility and control over how you write and speak. So, first up is what we call the attributive position. And honestly, this is the one you probably use all the time without even realizing it. It's super simple. The adjective just comes right before the noun it's describing. You see it here with the red car or excellent writing. It's the most straightforward, intuitive way to do it. Okay, and the second spot is the predicative position. This is where the adjective comes after a linking verb. Words like is, seems, feels, looks. So instead of saying the red car, you'd say the car is red. See how that works? The adjective is still describing the car, but it's connected back to it by that verb. It's making a statement about the car's quality. All right, now it's time to open up the full adjective toolkit. Because adjective isn't just one thing. It's more like a whole family of words, and each one has a very specific job. So let's dig in and check out some of the most important tools you've got in this kit. So we're going to break down 5 of the big ones. And really getting what each of these does is what takes you from just basic descriptions to something way more nuanced and powerful. Think of it this way. Each type answers a totally different kind of question. First up are descriptive adjectives, and honestly, these are the real workhorses of the adjective world. They do exactly what you'd think. They describe the qualities of a noun. Words like fluffy, delicious, rickety, they all help paint this really rich, sensory picture for whoever's listening. Next, we've got demonstrative adjectives. The easiest way to think about these? They're like pointing words. They tell you exactly which noun we're talking about, so there's zero confusion. This and these are for stuff that's close by, while that and those are for things farther away. It's all about location and being super specific. Then there are possessive adjectives. These are super simple, but totally essential. They answer that basic question, whose is it? Words like my, your, his, her, and their make it crystal clear who owns something. They add this really important layer of context. Now, what if you need to ask a question about a noun? Well, that's when you grab an interrogative adjective. Words like which, what, and whose get attached to a noun to help you ask something, like which path should we take? Or what time is it? These are your question-asking tools. And last but not least, we have proper adjectives. These are pretty cool. They come directly from proper nouns, the specific names of people, places, or things. So the country Italy gives us the adjective Italian. The writer Shakespeare gives us Shakespearean. And here's the big rule to remember. Just like a proper noun, a proper adjective always gets a capital letter. Okay, so now that we've got all our different tools laid out, let's get into some of the more advanced stuff. This is where it gets really interesting. We're going to talk about how to juggle multiple adjectives in one sentence and how to use them to make really good comparisons. So this is one of my favorite things about English. It's this sort of secret, unwritten rule that native speakers just know instinctively. When you stack up a bunch of adjectives, they have to go in a very specific order. For instance, you'd say a lovely, big, old, round, red Italian wooden dining table. Sounds totally normal, right? But if you mix it up and say a wooden, red, big, Italian, lovely dining old table, it just sounds wrong. This order, opinion, size, age, shape, color, and so on, is the hidden code that makes everything sound natural. Adjectives also have this cool ability to change shape to show comparison, which adds a lot of nuance. You've got the positive form, which is just the basic adjective like tall. Then there's the comparative form, which usually adds an ER to compare two things, so taller. And finally, the superlative form, with EST, compares three or more things to find the one that is the tallest. Now, if you look at the chart, you'll see that longer words like expensive don't use ER or EST. They use more and most. And then you have the really tricky ones like good, which are irregular and change completely to better and best. Okay, let's tackle a really common trip-up point. So many people get adjectives and adverbs mixed up, but I promise the difference is actually pretty simple and super powerful once it clicks. Let's clear this up once and for all. These two sentences right here show the difference perfectly. In she is a quick runner, the word quick is an adjective because it's describing the noun, the runner. It tells us what kind of runner she is. But in she runs quickly, the word quickly is an adverb because it's describing the verb runs. It's telling us how she runs. So here's the bottom line. Adjectives describe things, and adverbs describe actions. So we've covered the what, the where, and the how of adjectives. But now let's get to what I think is the most important part, the why. Why does all of this even matter? Why is getting a handle on this toolkit so crucial for becoming a really great communicator? When it comes right down to it, adjectives are pretty much the engine of good communication. They give us precision so we can get past vague ideas. They let us express emotion and set a certain tone. They totally spark the imagination for the listener. And hey, if you're in school, you know they're absolutely essential for writing a good essay. For anyone learning English, getting these right, especially the tricky order and different forms, is a huge step towards sounding truly fluent. So as we round things up, I want to leave you with this question you see on the screen. Because at the end of the day, adjectives don't just describe the world around us, they actually shape how we see it. So give it some thought. What single adjective would you pick, and what does that one little word say about your point of view? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.